Acadiana. Thanks for tuning in to Local News Live, a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with the Acadiana Advocate and the larger Advocate as a whole. We partner up with them so that we can bring you the written news in an audio format. We do that every Monday through Friday between 9 and 10 a.m. We could not do it without the generous volunteer efforts of our news readers. And today we are fortunate to be joined by Alicia Silv. Good morning, Alicia.
Good morning, Matt.
Thank you so much for joining us to read the news this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I'm going to go listen on Cypress Street. I'll be with you at the end of the show. Thanks so much.
To continue the unemployment benefits this week. Unemployment benefits have never provided more of a boost than now, he said, and by a huge margin. Should the benefits end, he said, it would not only affect individual families, but would also have a profound impact on the local economy, with local spending plunging and local businesses being further imperiled. Reduce them, and a significant amount of people will see reduction in buying goods and services. In Louisiana, that's 400,000 people who may experience weekly reductions of $240 million in income. It's not a recipe for a robust economic recovery, he said. Part of the problem lies in a dormant Louisiana energy medical team has maximized its workforce internally by moving people to more in-demand positions and has maximized recruiting for new health professionals. Despite full or robust counts for patients, she said COVID-19 patients need costly, intensive care that doesn't necessarily drive up profits. Because so much focus has been turned to caring for COVID-19 patients, elective surgeries are on hold. A rare bright spot on the economic horizon is real estate, Wagner suggested. Although he said he really doesn't fully understand why. The number of properties for sale is lower than normal, and prices rise because product is reduced. He said real estate cycled with oil prices 20 or 30 years ago, although now more jobs come from healthcare and education. Wagner offered a caution about continuing jobless benefits at their current $600 a week pace. Decisions we make on the economy now will impact the buying power of our grandchildren. Wagner said bolstering the pocketbooks of unemployed families now, although it helps the economy in the short term, drives up the national debt. Be concerned about that because excessive debt levels can make interest rates higher. It becomes more costly to buy big ticket items like houses and cars. Eventually, he said, that affects generational equity. If we borrow significant amounts of money to buy goods and services today, we are borrowing from the future, he said. At some point, people will consume less because of the decisions we are making today. Is that trade off working making? He asked a question he said all of us must answer. Medical workers plead with community over virus precautions by Megan Wyatt. Sarah Kerber, an intensive care unit nurse at Lafayette General Medical Center, has seen her parents 3 times since mid March. She hugged them once. She told them last week to stay at the cabin in West Virginia where they'd been vacationing for a month because returning home to South Louisiana was too dangerous. The reality of the health system right now is that because of how many COVID patients we have, the hospital can't handle any other illnesses or sicknesses that may happen, Corber said. If my dad had a heart attack tomorrow and he needed to have open heart surgery, if he went to the Lafayette General Emergency Room, there's a very good chance he couldn't stay there for heart surgery. If he's lucky, he can be sent to the heart hospital. If he's not, he may be shipped out of state. I don't even know if we could handle broken bones right now. That's the situation we're in. It's not space so much as personnel that's the problem, and it doesn't look like the situation will be improving anytime soon. As of Monday morning, a total of 181 employees have tested positive for the coronavirus at the hospital's main campus. It represents about 6% of the 2,800 employees who work for Lafayette General. Employees are tested if they are symptomatic, not on a widespread level, according to hospital spokeswoman Patricia Thompson. The total number the total number isn't as concerning as the rate of new cases among employees, which Thompson said is a result of community spread at large. 2 months ago, just 20 employees had tested positive for the virus. 1 month ago, the total employee count was 40. Now the number has grown to nearly 200. It's put a greater strain on the already strained staff. We're working with staffing agencies. We're working with staffing agencies, and we have very, very dedicated nurses working extra shifts and overtime, Thompson said. We know as dedicated they are, that level of intensity is not sustainable. We continue to plead with the community to follow the mask mandate and social distancing guidelines. Thompson said hospital administrations are cautiously optimistic that coronavirus cases are plateauing in Acadiana because there hasn't been an increase in patients in a few days. Even so, there's a growing frustration among local medical professionals about how the community is responding to the state's mask mandate and the second wave of coronavirus cases in Acadiana. Corber said Corber has kept mostly quiet on social media about what she's seen in the hospital since the pandemic started. It was a viral video claiming doctors are ignoring a known cure for COVID-19, the disease caused by the virus, that inspired her to write a heartfelt post about what's really happening. I think lately, hopefully by a minority and not a majority, we felt less supported, Corbett said. We're feeling very in, 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 inundated, inundated and bombarded by the level of COVID. And then there's people not agreeing with whether it's real or a hoax or a political or conspiracy thing. Her Wednesday post has been making the rounds locally on Facebook, as has another passionate post, a letter sent by the chief medical officer of Our Lady of Lourdes Regional Medical Center to hospital staff. Although Dr. Henry Kaufman, the sixth, didn't intend, the fourth, didn't intend for the letter to become public, large officials have confirmed its authenticity. Kaufman said the number of COVID-19 patients spiked Monday morning at 82, and admissions continue to outpace discharges. More nurses and team members are becoming sick each day, he said. I have no reason to believe that this wave of cases will abate anytime soon and anticipate that we will continue to care for large numbers of COVID plus patients for the foreseeable future, he wrote. As a result, I fear the recent trajectory of cases will deplete the medical resources of our community. Kaufman pleaded in the letter with hospital staff who might not be seeing COVID-19 patients firsthand to take the crisis seriously and ensure their friends and family are doing the same. I am comforted I am confronted daily by individuals in our community who believe that the pandemic is a hoax, that it is politically motivated, that things are not as bad as the media portrays, Kaufman wrote. If anyone doubts it, I invite them to accompany me personally on a tour of our ICU and the COVID units. There you can see for yourself patients in their second, third, and fourth decade of life with minimum to no comorbid conditions struggle to breathe in the ICU alongside those we would expect to be most severely impacted by the disease. This disease is not affecting just those with significant medical comorbidities. Kaufman also wrote that in order for schools to open responsibly, hospitals must have some reasonable capacity to care for the surge in cases, which will follow the children's return to school. Teams are working shift after shift with little rest, according to Lord spokeswoman Elizabeth Arnold. Hospital administration is providing meals, washing scrubs, subsidizing childcare, and praying with employees. It will take community support to help the medical professionals survive the pandemic. However, where other places have allowed science and reason to guide their actions, the curve has been flattened and the disease has been suppressed to the point where routine personal and commercial activities have resumed, Kaufman wrote. Here in our community, there has been much resistance to common sense measures, and we are reaping the rewards of our obstinance. Even though morale is low and employees are exhausted, Corbett said she's witnessed so many beautiful moments with her team at Lafayette General. Nurses have decorated a patient's room with Star Wars images and have gone to the store to buy watermelon at a patient's request. They've cried alongside patients who can't see their families, and they've cheered for patients who were discharged after months in the hospital. Her colleagues have become her support system. Korber said the community seemed to support their efforts until Easter, but support has steadily dwindled since then. People are just kind of over it, she said, but healthcare workers are over it too. We would all like COVID to be over and be a thing of the past, and we're just not there yet. Kaufman ended his letter with a directive to staff. We all went into medicine out of a sense of the common good, to heal the sick and to ease suffering, Kaufman wrote to his staff. Currently, our community is sick. The disease is ignorance and misinformation, and you, my colleagues, are the cure. The patient requires your attention. Act. And in other news, enormous income loss. Almost 1 in 4 working Louisianians filing for unemployment by Brian Stoll. Recent news analysis have sketched out a dire picture of the scope of the jobless crisis in Louisiana and the extent of the expected damage to the state's economy as the federal boost to unemployment benefits lapse. But the true picture is actually worse than some of those reports have outlined. For instance, a Sunday story in The Advocate, the Times Picayune, noted that more than 313,000 laid off Louisianians had filed for state unemployment benefits as of July 18th, the most recent data for which the state provided complete data. But that figure didn't include the thousands of freelancers, independent contractors, and so called gig workers thrown out of jobs by the coronavirus crisis. The latter group includes more than 152,000 out of work Louisianians who, although not normally covered by the unemployment insurance system, have been able to file for jobless benefits under a special federal expansion of the program to address the massive job losses during the pandemic. Added together, that works out to about 465,000 out of work Louisianians, or nearly a quarter of the state's total labor force, who have filed continued claims for unemployment benefits. All are now in line for a $600 per week cut in income after the federal boost to unemployment passed by Congress in March expired at the end of last week. For most of those people, that would be a loss of at least 70% of their income. The expired federal boost to benefits injected a total of as much as $270 million. $270 million each week into the Louisiana economy. It's an enormous income loss that has started now, said Jan Moeller, executive director of the Louisiana Budget Project, a left-leaning nonprofit that advocates for working Louisiana families. There are not 500,000 jobs for people to go back to, not even remotely close. While the data suggests nearly 1 in 4 working Louisianians is about to take a major financial hit, that pain won't be spread evenly on a geographic basis. A March analysis by the Brookings Institution predicted that New Orleans would be the third hardest hit of 106 U.S. metro areas, thanks largely to the city's dependence on tourism. As predicted, the pandemic prompted a free fall in air travel, led to the cancellation of numerous major festivals and conventions, and forced bars, restaurants, hotels, the biggest employers in the area by far, to dramatically scale back operations or shutter entirely. As of June, the latest figures available, the number of total jobs in the New Orleans area was down 13.7% from February levels. Those numbers were down across the state, of course. The drop was 10.5% in the Baton Rouge area and 5.4% in Lafayette, according to the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics. The picture appears to have only worsened since then, at least based on weekly initial unemployment claims, which, after falling in May and June, began ticking back up toward throughout July. Claims from Orleans, Jefferson, and St. Tammany parishes account for nearly a third of the state's total unemployment claims. Businesses that cater to travelers now face a deeply uncertain future. The coronavirus's resurgence has cast doubt over the future of tourism industry and a growing number of major employers in that sector. Casinos and large hotels have filed notices with the state warning of mass layoffs, an indication that mass furloughs in March and April are likely to turn into permanent job cuts. The accommodation and food service sectors have seen by far the steepest job losses, both statewide and in the New Orleans area, followed by retail. Those two sectors alone count for more than 50% of the job losses that we've seen in the last couple of months, said Gary Wagner, an economics professor at the University of Lafayette, during the Acadiana Advocates Virtual Economic Outlook panel Wednesday morning. Workers in the hospitality industry, in particular, tend to earn lower wages, live paycheck to paycheck, leaving many out of work families with little cushion to ride out unemployment. While some in this sector actually got a brief boost in pay from the $600 weekly unemployment supplement, they're, li- they're unlikely to have much in the way of savings to draw on when that stipend is cut. It's going to have a generational impact on a lot of households, said Mahler. Protesters derail town hall. After meeting, Guillory solicits outside help to run rec centers, by Claire Taylor. Just a few hours after residents held hostage for more than 20 minutes a town hall meeting with chants of Save Our Recs and Northside Matters, Lafayette Mayor President Josh Guillory began soliciting outside entities to run 4 recreation centers in predominantly black neighborhoods. Guillory announced July 17th he was closing the Domain Recreation Center, George Bowles Activity Center, J. Carlton James Activity Center, and Hyman Park Recreation Center on August 14th, and laying off 37 employees because city sales tax income has dropped by millions after businesses were ordered to close to the slow spread of COVID-19. The announcement took city and parish council members by surprise and ignited protest. As soon as Guillory tried to speak at his third town hall meeting Wednesday, a group of residents stood and started chanting. They also protested because many of the residents weren't allowed to address the parish and city councils Tuesday, when the parish council did not second a motion to introduce an ordinance that would have forced Guillory to keep the recreation centers open through October 31st. How does it feel to be silenced? One of the protesters said Wednesday. The chants varied from being specific to the recreation centers and Northside to objecting to police use of force that left a Minneapolis man, George Floyd, dead to general calls for equality. Get your knee off your Get your knee off our neck, they chanted. Save the children, Northside matters. Guillory attempted to silence the protesters, asking them to instead engage in a dialogue. After a warning, he asked interim police chief Scott Morgan to remove the protesters from the Robichaux Recreation Center. The protesters left without trouble. No one was arrested and no one caused trouble, said Sergeant Wayne Griffin, public information officer with the Lafayette Police Department. Guillory said he let the protests continue so long because he believes It is about more than closing recreation centers and believes in the right to peacefully protest. With about 30 minutes left to the town hall meeting, Guillory answered questions from the public, endorsing an idea to create a volunteer force to help out with programs, and said he would find a way to keep the four centers open, including public-private partnerships. Resident Ken Broussard suggested that $500,000 a year by closing one or all three LCG golf courses. He objected to privatizing the recreation centers, saying taxpayers should control their tax dollars, not private corporations. A few hours later, Lafayette Consolidated Government released a request for proposals from businesses and organizations interested in operating the four recreation centers. The business or organization would be responsible for hiring its own staff, marketing the centers, working with LCG to set fees for use of the centers, and share any profits with LCG. Any contract would require the recreation centers to be made accessible to all Lafayette Parish residents. Emergency services must be available at all times, and the centers must be maintained according to all codes and regulations. Part of our new normal. Lafayette teacher collecting masks, sanitation supplies for students by Katie Gagliano. Lafayette public school students will be required to wear a mask when they return to classes beginning August 17th. And one Northside High teacher is asking community members to donate masks and personal sanitation products to ensure high need students are protected. Brandy Clay, who helps lead Northside High's nonprofit Jobs for America's Graduates program, is collecting donations of child and adult sized masks, personal hand sanitizers, and antibacterial wipes at Above the Limit Tutoring LLC at 811 West University Ave through Friday. Interested donors can also email Clay at theedseries@gmail.com. Donations will be organized into individually wrapped care packages containing 3 masks, 2 hand sanitizers, and a pack of antibacterial wipes. Families with students in the Lafayette Parish school system, private schools, charter schools, and homeschooling programs can drive through the circle at Northside High between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Saturday to collect the packages without leaving their vehicles. You do what you can to make a difference, to make sure students are safe mentally, physically, and emotionally. Whatever you can do to aid in the success and growth of that child, you do it. This is now part of our new normal, and we have to make the adjustments the best way we know how. So, as a teacher, I can be successful, our students can be successful, and our community can be successful, she said. Clay said the idea for a donation drive developed while she was fretting over her students' safety while apart. Were they in a safe environment? Were the students mentally and emotionally stable? Were they threatened by the virus? As the question swirled in her mind, Clay said she decided to act instead of waiting for someone else to step in. At-risk students are at greater risk both of illness from the virus and of having their education disrupted because of changes in school scheduling and a shift to partial online learning, Clay said. On the health side, Black communities have been disproportionately impacted by the coronavirus. Some reasons include long-term inequities in access to quality health insurance, health care, transportation, and the building blocks for healthy living, including fresh fruits and vegetables, she said. While those hurdles can't be overcome immediately, Clay said she saw an opportunity to address the need for safety by doing her part to make the students feel more secure. Social and emotional needs play heavily into a student's ability to learn and succeed, Clay said, and addressing them helps clear a barrier to achievement. I was looking at the social emotional aspects and the health aspects when we take one worry away from a parent and when we ease a child's mind about possibly getting coronavirus, she said. The educator said she originally planned to funnel the donations to high need schools where administrators and teachers could have stashes of masks to offer face coverings to students who may not be able to afford or access masks, forget them at home, or damage them while at school. But once donations started trickling in, Clay said she decided she wanted to give families the peace of mind of having the mask and sanitation supplies in their hands, knowing they're equipped with the right protective items begins before school begins could provide some relief, she said. Clay has solicited support from local businesses through her organization, the Ed D Series, a nonprofit aimed at closing opportunity gaps between minority students and white students, and received donations from individual donors around the state and as far as California. Any donations that arrive after the Saturday distribution event will be organized and donated to high need schools. Lafayette Parish Schools outline possible at home learning schedules. Phased reopening combines in person online instruction by Katie Gagliano. The Lafayette Parish School Board meeting on Wednesday provided parents a glimpse of what at home learning days may look like in each reopening phase. Mark Rabelais, Chief Academic Officer for the Lafayette Parish School System, gave a 20-minute breakdown of student learning and sample student schedules under each category in the district's dependent reopening plans at Wednesday's school board meeting. Each category, Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3, hinges on the status of the state's COVID 19 case numbers and declarations from Governor John Bel Edwards. Lafayette Public Schools plan to reopen in Phase 2 on August 17th with students attending classes in a hybrid model where students are split into A and B groups and spend 2 to 3 days in face to face classes, with the rest spent learning at home virtually. The students are divided by home address, with odd addresses attending on A days and even addresses attending on B days. Rabelais said in a Phase 2 setting, in person learning would initially focus on student assessment, diagnostic testing to target deficiencies, and efforts to ensure students are strong on their prerequisite skills after classes were shut down in mid March. The first month, whether we're blended, traditional, whatever the case may be, we really want to focus on what were those prerequisite skills that they missed at the end of the year last year that may come back to get them again at the beginning of this next school year. The in-person classes would also focus on core instruction, interventions for areas where students are struggling, accommodations for students with special needs, and normal testing and grading. At home, the students would complete extension and enrichment activities, building off the face-to-face instruction and complete new learning on online platforms. A sample at home schedule might look like 2 to 3 hours of learning broken down into 30-minute to an hour long blocks where students complete reading and writing assignments for English language arts, research for a social studies project, view a Google Class Lab video for science and elective time, he said. The assignments would then shift the next at home learning day. The fully virtual Phase 1 plan would be similar to students at home learning days in the blended model, but more key learning would happen on online platforms, and there would be scheduled time for teacher engagement. Elementary students would have a small group time with the teacher via Zoom for live instruction or assistance daily, while students in middle and high school would have virtual office hours for each class. If we go phase-dependent virtual, that does not mean a teacher teaching 8 hours, 7 hours a day on Zoom is not efficient or feasible either for our teachers or our students to engage in that practice, Rabelais said. Students in kindergarten through second grade should spend about an hour and a half to 2 hours on math and English during the week, broken into 30 to 45-minute blocks, each day with Friday set aside for art, new assignments, small group time, or additional support from the teacher virtually per a sample schedule. Third through 12th grade students would spend between 2 and 3 hours per subject per week and cover math, English, science, and social studies. Third through fifth grade students might have reading every day, while alternating math and science or social studies learning periods during the week. Sixth through eighth grade students could alternate subjects with reading and math on one day and then science and social studies on the next. In high school, it's suggested students divide their class schedule in half and alternate their courses each day, while Fridays could be used for electives, enrichment time, office hours, and teacher support. Rabelais' sample schedule showed. It was really important to us that we map something out, that in the event we had to turn on virtual or turn on blended, we have our programs in place and we have our resources aligned not only for students but for our teachers so that they can be supported in any one of these models, Rabelais said. In other news, suspended Lafayette City Marshal ordered to court. Brian Pope faces possible probation revocation by Claire Taylor. Suspended Lafayette City Marshal Brian Pope has been ordered to appear in court for possibly having violated his probation stemming from a public records lawsuit he lost to a local newspaper. District Court Judge Jules Edwards has ordered Pope to court on August 10th to show why his probation should not be revoked. The order alleges Pope has provided no proof that he has completed court-mandated community service. In August 2018, Edwards sentenced Pope to 30 days in jail, suspending all but 168 hours, which he was allowed to serve on house arrest. Edwards also placed Pope on 2 years probation, which included 173 hours of community service consisting of teaching others about the Louisiana Public Records Act and the consequences of failure to abide by the law. As an alternative, Pope was allowed to pick up litter to fulfill his community service hours. Pope's probation expires August 29th. The Independent sued Pope in 2015 for not providing public records, specifically emails requested under the state's public records law. The newspaper prevailed, but Pope still did not comply with the judge's order to provide all of the requested documents to the newspaper, which led to criminal charges. Pope's legal problems not Pope's legal problems only got worse. In October 2018, a jury found Pope guilty of malfeasance and perjury, but Judge David Smith dismissed the perjury charge. On July 10th, Pope lost his appeal but plans to ask the Senate states Pope lost his appeal but plans to ask the state Supreme Court to consider the conviction. As a convicted felon, Pope was automatically suspended without pay. With an appeal pending, he was allowed to fill paperwork to be placed on the November 3rd ballot for re-election for the city marshal post. Pope faces additional felony malfeasance charges for supplementing his salary with fees that are supposed to be deposited in the city marshal's office fund, not his personal account, according to an opinion from the state attorney general's office. Grand jury indicts 3 in 2 fatal shootings. A grand jury for the 15th Judicial District Court on Wednesday indicted 3 people in 2 fatal shootings and charged another suspect in a fatal hit and run. Dante Francis, 26, and Carell Francis, 18, both of Scott, were indicted on charges of first-degree murder, aggravated burglary, and armed robbery in the January 27th shooting death of Shenard Simmons, a 33-year-old wheelchair-bound man who was shot and killed in his home in the 300 block of Bopamo Lane. Jacoby Senegal, 34, of Rain, was indicted on a charge of second-degree murder in the November 17th death of Billy Joe Michelle Touche. KATC-TV reported that Touche's death was originally investigated as an attempted suicide, but Senegal was later accused of her shooting. Jada Judge, 28, of Tucson, was indicted on felony hit and run resulting in death. Judge is accused of hitting Jason Francis, 45, in a convenience store parking lot in the 800 block of North University Avenue on March 29 before fleeing. Francis died at an area hospital the following day. The Lafayette Police Department said the grand jury declined to indict Mitchell John Dantrill, Jr., 31, of Tucson, in the June 27th shooting of Kyle Romero, who died at an area hospital after being shot twice in the 200 block of Meadow Lane. Acadiana D.E. George taking time on college decision by Kevin Foote. It's not the Acadiana High senior defensive end Cam George hasn't made any decisions. So far, he's received 28 scholarship offers and he's trimmed that list to 10. But don't expect the Wrecking Rams speed rusher to announce his final decision anytime soon. Right now, mentally, I'm just trying to weigh all of my options, pray about it, and ask God to lead me in the right direction, George said. The 6'2", 245-pound George said he primarily leaned on 2 factors in narrowing his list down. The biggest factor in narrowing the school down is education, said George, who plans on attending medical school in the future. He also He's also looking for that school that's going to help me learn and grow in the aspect of mentally, physically, and spiritually. George's current plans are to make his final commitment after the 2020 high school football season. The Raging Cajuns are on that list. After decades of a disconnect between Acadiana High and UL, there's been a recent flow from Bill Dotson Stadium to Cajun Field, including Braylon Trahan, Jordan Quibido, and Jaron Wilson. I haven't talked to any of the ex-Acadiana players there just yet, George said. I definitely plan to talk to those guys in the future to learn more about the program and its culture, like they say. I want to learn more about the coaching staff and the scheme. It's a great program. I'm going to stick with them and learn more about that program. In addition to the Cajuns, the other 9 schools on Georgia's list are Florida Atlantic, Georgia State, Ohio, Texas San Antonio, Western Kentucky, Army, Air Force, South Alabama, and Navy. His family has been a big influence in George's decision. His older brother Claude played at Hutchinson Community College and at Texas A&M, and then Malik signed with Stephen F. Austin in 2016. My biggest influences have been my parents and my brothers, George said. They really showed me how to handle myself, how to go in the right direction, and how to make the right decisions. They taught me you have to work for what you have in life. Rams defensive coordinator Kyle Siebold describes George as an unbelievably mature guy. Very mature, very intellectual. His parents do a great job, and he's got 2 older brothers. So by nature, you're going to grow up faster. He's a very quiet, reserved person off the field and a completely different dude on the field. His production as a junior was limited due to missing 5 games with an injury, but George came up with came up big for the defense in the state championship game to finish with 7 sacks. He was defensive end for us 95% of the time last year, and that won't change much this year, Sebo said. He'll probably get more freedom at times from a pass rush standpoint than he did a year ago. For a while, we didn't know if we were going to get him back. Then he had an unbelievable game for us in the state championship game. Some schools are recruiting him as a 4-3 defensive end, while others are looking at the George as a stand-up 3-4 outside linebacker. He has the ability to grow a couple of more inches and put on some more weight, Seabold said. I think the sky's the limit for him. I think he's got all of the attributes that everybody wants: his character, his intelligence. He works extremely hard. He's the type of guy every coach wants to have. He just tries to do what you ask him to do and does it 100%. For now, Georgia's focus is on properly preparing for the 2020 season, whenever it ends up starting. Today in history. Today is Thursday, July 30th, the 212th day of 2020. There are 154 days left in the year. Today's highlight in history. On July 30th, 1945, the Portland-class heavily cruiser USS Indianapolis, having just delivered components of the atomic bomb to Tinian in Mariana Islands, was torpedoed by a Japanese submarine. Only 317 out of nearly 1,200 men survived. On this date, in 1619, the first representative assembly in America convened in Jamestown in the Virginia colony. In 1956, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed a measure making "In God We Trust," the national motto, replacing "E pluribus," out of many one. In 1965, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed a measure creating Medicare, which began operating the following year. In 2003, President George W. Bush took personal responsibility for the first time for using discredited intelligence in his State of the Union address, but predicted he would be vindicated for going to war against Iraq. 10 years ago, President Barack Obama toured Chrysler and General Motors assembly plants, where he offered an upbeat assessment of the U.S. auto industry a year after the big government bailouts. Today's birthdays: blues musician Buddy Guy is 84. Singer Paul Anka is 79. Former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger is 73. Actor Ken Olin is 66. Actress Delta Burke is 64. Actor Richard Burgee is 62. Bluegrass musician Danny Roberts from the Grass Gals is 57. Actress Vivica A. Fox is 56. Actor Terry Crews is 52. Actress Christine Taylor is 49. And actress April Bowley is 40. And for our zodiacs, Leo, get into a routine. Proper diet and exercise will help you look and feel your best. Listen to your inner voice, not to what an outsider tells you. Virgo, uncertainty will lead to inconsistency and difficulty dealing with others. Concentrate on what you can do and how best to approach your objectives. Libra, engage in activities or jobs that require physical rather than intellectual skills. Personal growth, physical improvements, love, and romance are favored. Scorpio, don't doubt your capability. Your ideas and energy will help you excel. Present and promote what you have to offer, and you'll receive positive input. Sagittarius, happiness begins within. Make adjustments that lead to a brighter future. Fitness, health, and personal grooming will lead to compliments that boost your ego. Capricorn, hard work will pay off. Don't prematurely present what you are working on. A positive change at home will encourage a healthier, more productive lifestyle. Nurture a meaningful relationship. Aquarius, acknowledge changes that are taking place and address your concerns. Listen carefully to what others say, but don't agree to anything without further investigation. Use your skills more effectively. Pisces, control your emotions. You'll have regrets if you act in haste. Consider your options and develop a plan that is beneficial to everyone involved. Don't let anyone meddle in your personal affairs. Aries, show sensitivity toward others' thoughts and feelings. Getting along with all and knowing when and how to compromise will alleviate relationship problems. Taurus, review options and discuss your plans with the people affected by the decisions you make. Understanding the repercussions involved will help ease stress. Don't take a financial risk. Gemini, consider what's working best for you and proceed with enthusiasm. Make choices based on facts, not on emotional impulses. Do what's right, deal with opposition, and stay focused on your objectives. Cancer, you will eliminate stress if you stick to the methods that have worked well in the past. Start a unique project that interests you but won't cost you financially, emotionally, or physically. And deaths for our area, for the Acadiana area, Clay Benton, to be held at the Delhome Chapel of the Flowers at 2 p.m., and Dr. Rixby Broussard, held at Delhome Chapel of the Flowers at noon. And this has been your morning news. Thank you for tuning in. Enjoy your day.